Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 1 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 1, Introduction, Earth, birthplace of the human race. What would at first appear to be an unremarkable planet to most extraterrestrial lifeforms is in reality a world that is much more than meets the eye. A world of vast oceans and varied landscapes, Earth has many hidden mysteries within, right down to the populace itself. The first incident was in Xing City, where an extraordinary child who radiated light was born. And following the birth of this child, reports of humans with strange superpowers began to occur all across the globe. No origins for these powers, which were eventually dubbed quirks, is currently known, but in a short time after, the world began to transition into a superhuman society. As of the present time, around 80% of the population has developed certain uncanny abilities, and as cities swirled with chaos and confusion, a new profession began dominating the collective populace. The age of heroes had begun, people who rose to combat the rise of villains who used their quirks for evil. However, upon even further inspection, planet Earth has far more to it than even the quirks, heroes and villains. For, buried deep within this world's crust, lies a powerful element that not even the human race has found yet. Energon, the lifeblood of our race. One of the many catalysts that started the war on our home planet of Cybertron. We, the Autobots, and the cruel Decepticons, two opposing sides with already differing ideologies, began to quarrel over the substance as our planet continued to suffer from our ongoing war. Cybertron itself was dying, and it was my hope that, on some far-off planet, there could be a hidden cache of energon that we could bring back to help us win the war, and perhaps even rejuvenate the planet itself. So, it was then that I commissioned the building of a great spacecraft, the Ark, which would take a team of Autobots off-planet, in hopes of finding the energon we needed. I sent some of my best Autobots to man the mission, and my conjunct Endera vehemently insisted that she lead the mission. I was initially going to lead it myself, but she argued that I was needed more on Cybertron, and she would not take no for an answer. Begrudgingly, I agreed, and upon further reflection, I wish I had gone instead. For no sooner did the Ark enter this planet's vicinity did it disappear, and her along with it. But now, after 300 stellar cycles of waiting, we are finally here. My team of Autobots, along with our new human allies, will do everything in our power to find the Ark, revive the Autobots within, and locate the caches on Energon on Earth so that we may return to Cybertron to end the war. But we must tread lightly, for we don't know if we'll be able to evade the Decepticons for long, even on this planet. And with this world's society being so vigilant, we have taken new alternate forms to avoid the detection of civilians, heroes and villains. We are now robots in disguise. My name is Optimus Prime, and this is where our story begins. Normal POV. UA. Hi, the prestigious hero school where Japan's greatest heroes all graduated. For years, this facility has been at the very top of the hero course curriculum, with such heroes such as Endeavor to Best Jeanist, to even the symbol of peace himself, All Might being among its alumni. The past week saw its current semester kick off, with the young students of classes 1A and 1B headlining the hero course. However, the first week of the semester hadn't even ended yet when a major event happened within the grounds of UA itself, and it wasn't exactly a positive one either. A gang of troublemakers known as the League of Villains had somehow infiltrated the school, portaling into the newly constructed unforeseen simulation joint to cause mayhem during Class 1A's first visit. Fortunately, the young heroes had managed to do well in fending off the gang, which had mostly consisted of small-time thugs aside from the three main villains leading the charge, whom All Might had managed to fend off. While the teachers, 13 and Eraserhead, were left with grisly injuries, they were expected to pull through. All in all, it seemed like things would be fine. And then the very next day came for Izuku Midoriya. In one day, he had managed to get chased down by a secret government organization, make friends with said government organization, and then successfully stop an invasion at the very last second with the help of his new friends and All Might. And why did this all come about? Because he had somehow managed to make friends with a Volkswagen Beetle that was actually an alien robot in disguise. Yeah, that part surprised him at first, too. Granted, ever since he had met Bumblebee that day, things had only gotten better and better for him. He had made plenty of new friends, something which he wasn't certain would ever happen to him. Among these friends were Mei Hatsume, the girl who had managed to fix Bumblebee, and one Kyoka Jiro, who had found out about the bot herself by accident. Over the course of several months, he had gotten to know both girls very well, and it even helped him develop more confidence in talking to women and other people in general, so it was a win-win on all fronts. And then there was also Momo Yaoyorozu, who ended up finding out at the USJ because she happened to be with them when Bumblebee and Windblade had come to save their butts. He wasn't too familiar with the pretty rich girl yet, but he was hopeful that everyone in this odd little friend group would get along well. Plus, Momo had also managed to set the Autobots up with an abandoned warehouse that was owned by her father, so that was a plus. Now that there were more Autobots on Earth, including their leader, Optimus Prime, Izuku was sure that things would be getting far more interesting from here on. And now, as he, Kyoka and Momo all walked to their classroom with their other friends, Tenya Iida and Ochako Uraraka leading the way, they couldn't help but whisper among themselves about the very topic that had pulled them into this new world of what Mei had dubbed, the Transformers. So Yaoyorozu, where exactly is this warehouse that you set the Autobots up with? Izuku whispered. Momo and Kyoka both looked toward their friend with apprehension before the raven-haired beauty put her hand next to her mouth. Midoriya, I would be more careful with mentioning you-know-who in school, she whispered as she nudged her head over to Tenya and Ochako. After all, we're not exactly out of earshot. Yeah, Izuku, she's got a point. Kyoka agreed, making the green-haired boy blush slightly. It was still a bit shocking to hear someone not in his family use his first name so casually, but he also remembered that she was essentially his best friend, so she staked her claim on that a long time ago. You never know who could be listening in, she added as she wriggled her earphone jacks for emphasis. Alright, sorry. Izuku apologized. I'm just, still trying to process everything that happened last night is all. I guess my mind got away from me. Kyoka smiled and sent the greenette a wink. Ah, don't sweat it, Green Bean, we don't blame ya there. Of course not, Momo assured. I'm still attempting to come to terms with it myself. She sent a kind smile to Izuku and continued, but, to answer your question, the warehouse is just outside of Korusan, not far from Musutafu. Oh, cool. Izuku grinned. That means it shouldn't be that far of a drive. Ahem. The trio suddenly jumped in surprise as they all spun around, seeing that Tenya and Ochako were now standing behind them. The bespectacled class rep had his hands on his hips and his brow furrowed slightly in confusion, while Ochako had her head tilted. And just where are you three off to? Tenya asked. Kyoka pursed her lips slightly and crossed her arms. Class, obviously. Same place you're going, right? Ochako blinked a couple times before pointing up. Guys, class is right here. You passed it while you were talking to yourselves. The three teens, eyes all widened as they snapped their heads up, seeing the Class 1A sign right next to the massive classroom door. And they themselves had almost made it to Class 1B's door instead. The trio couldn't help but feel slightly embarrassed as they shuffled over to their rightful room. Oh hee, alright, so we did. Izuku muttered sheepishly. Are you all alright? Tenya questioned in concern. You three have been acting awfully strange since we came to school. Yeah, and what were you talking about, anyway? Ochako furthered. Something about Korusan. A slight wave of nervousness overcame the three before Momo quickly saved face. Oh, right, well, we actually have a prior engagement over there after school today. My father owns a warehouse over there and Jiro and Midoriya generously offered to help move some things out in preparation for refurbishing. In her mind, however, Momo was repeating to herself, please buy it, please buy it, please buy it. Fortunately, her prayers were answered. Wow, that's actually really cool, guys. Ochako smiled. Indeed. Iida concurred, his arm moving in their usual stiff manner. Quite the admirable contribution. No doubt you must be quite serious about your heroics if you're taking up volunteer work on the side. After all, any good deed can be seen as heroic in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, Kyoka nodded, keeping the act going. You sure have got a point there, Iida. She glanced off to the side, however, remarking in her head, even if you do have a bit of a stick up your ass. Izuku couldn't help but breath out a sigh of relief, thankful to Momo for coming up with a quick cover story. They may have been lying to their friends, but it was definitely necessary to keep the Autobots' presence a secret. We definitely have to be more careful about where and when we discuss any Cybertronian-related topics. His grin returning, Izuku began reaching for the door to slide it open. Well, now that that's settled, shall we go? Midoriya, a shrill voice suddenly cried out from behind the group. Watch out! Gangway! Huh, ah, smack, oof. Izuku felt a great impact come crashing into his gut before he was forcibly taken down to the floor, causing everyone else to yell in surprise and back away. It was followed up by the sound of a clang and something metal rolling along the tile floors. Izuku strained to open his eyes after the crash, but when he did, he immediately saw the source of the metal sound, a giant hunk of scrap. Before he could question that, though, he heard a soft yet bubbly giggle directly next to him. Hee, sorry about that. That thing was so big, I could hardly see. Izuku turned his head, and was met with a pair of golden eyes accompanied by black sclerae. He yelped and pulled his head back, allowing him to fully see the smiling, pink-skinned face of Mina Ishido. Ishido. Dude, what the hell? Kyoka sent the horned girl an accusing glare, placing her hands on her hips. What's the big deal coming in and ramming into him like that? Her smile not faltering even a bit, Ishido simply laughed again and shot up to her feet. Ah, come on, Jiro, no need to be a grump. I said it was sorry and it was an accident. She reached down and offered Izuku her hand. Here, Midoriya, let me help ya up. Thanks. As much as Izuku knew he was better around women at this point, it was still hard to interact with ladies that he wasn't particularly close to. Mina seemed nice, though, in fact, maybe a bit too nice. She was pretty much the entire opposite of Midoriya's introverted personality, but at the same time, he couldn't fault her for being a good person, which he definitely could admire. He took the hand and Mina practically hoisted him up to his feet, surprising him a bit. Whoa. Hey, so, what exactly is that anyway? Ooh, I was hoping you'd ask. Using all of her strength, Mina picked up the massive hunk of twisted metal, doing her best to keep it from covering her line of sight. This, my friends, is a piece of debris I procured from those meteorites that fell in the city last night. Once more, Izuku, Kyoka and Momo all felt a chill go through them. Mina was holding a chunk of metal that came off one of the re-entry pods that the Autobots used to make planet fall. To say that their arrival to Earth didn't go unnoticed was an understatement, as practically all news outlets were covering it this morning. The day prior, Class 1A's run-in with the League of Villains had been the talk of the town, but now, it was all about the meteor shower that directly hit Musudafu. Whoa, no way. Ochako beamed as her eyes began to shine. Mina, did you see it, too? Iida and I were really close to one. So were me, Kirishima and Kaminari. Ishido explained enthusiastically. We were in a nightclub when a couple landed not far from us. She eyed the twisted metal in her arms giddily. The fire and rescue squad came and sealed the area off a bit after, but I got this baby as a souvenir. Ishido, what are you thinking? Tenya scolded as his right hand began a chopping motion. You have no idea where that thing has been. But Ishido waved the engine quirk user off. Oh, I know where it's been, Iida. After all, it came from space. Her smile unrelenting, Mina grew even more excited as she brought up another topic. And that leads me to my big theory, what those meteorites actually were. Izuku swallowed hard, hesitating to ask, but still finding it within him to do so. And, what exactly is that, Ishido? Mina put the hunk of metal down and began setting the scene. Okay, so, remember how I said that those meteors landed near the nightclub? Well, Kirishima, Kaminari and I all managed to get a peek at what was going on, and we thought we saw some movement where the space rocks landed. This caused everyone's eyes to widen considerably, with a certain trios doing so out of fear. But then, when the fire and rescue squad arrived, something strange happened. They came in with a police jeep truck and a rescue vehicle, and then a split second later, two more vehicles that looked exactly like them but with different paint jobs came rolling out from where the meteors landed. Ochacos' lips parted in shock. Whoa, really? Quite curious. Tenya admitted, putting a hand to his chin. Perhaps a different unit had already been dispatched to the scene. Oh, Nah, no way, Iida. Mina vehemently shook her head. There's no way any rescue vehicles could have gotten there that fast. A sly grin worked its way onto her features as she raised a single finger to the group. But, what I think happened actually could explain everything pretty well. She motioned for the five to come closer, and when they were close enough, Mina whispered, I think, we've been visited by aliens. Fear took hold of Momo, Kyoka and Izuku, the former murmuring, aliens. Mina raised her arms up high above her head. Yes, aliens. But not just any aliens. She pointed directly out the nearby window. But aliens that can disguise themselves as anything. They just so happened to see the rescue vehicles, so they took that form to look as unassuming as possible. Mina smirked pridefully as tapped the side of her head. But lemme tell ya, I sure as hell ain't fooled. The pink-skinned girl rubbed her hands together eagerly. I'm gonna find these aliens and find out what they're doing on our planet, and when I do, I'm gonna tell everyone about them. At this point, Izuku was pretty sure that his face was pale at this point, namely because Kyoka and Momo were pretty blood-drained themselves. The punk girl leaned toward her greenette friend and whispered, she knows too much. We gotta wipe her memory. What? How? Izuku hushed back. I dunno, Sector 7 must have some kinda mind-wiping technology, right? We could just. But Kyoka was cut off by something unexpected, a pair of hearty laughs. She, along with Momo, Izuku, and even Mina herself, were caught off guard when they saw Ochako and Tenya break out into a fit of laughter, the gravity quirk user holding her gut as she guffawed. Haha. Mina, no offense, but that has to be one of the best crackpot theories I've ever heard in my life. Mina blinked, surprised by the reaction. Wait, crackpot. Oh, come on Ochako, you can't deny that there could be something behind it. She thrust her hand back toward the window. I mean, we live in a world filled with quirks. You can't tell me that some form of alien life isn't impossible. Hee ahem, well, that definitely cannot be ruled out, I'll grant you that. Tenya affirmed, gaining control of himself. But still, even you must admit, Ishido, that this theory of yours is oddly specific. Creative, yes, but, shape-shifting aliens that can somehow take the forms of vehicles. It almost sounds like something from the pre-Quirk B movies. Mina puffed out her cheeks indignantly at that. Hey, pre-Quirk B movies are the bomb. She huffed to the two, picked up her ball of twisted metal, and then proceeded to walk defiantly into the classroom. Fine then, don't believe me. But I still say that there's something bigger behind all of this. Hey, that's fine by me. Ochako assured, waving her hands a little before eyeing the others. Come on guys, let's head in. As the other three went in, however, Izuku, Kyoka and Momo couldn't help but let out sighs of relief. Phew, thank goodness. Izuku wiped his brow. Yeah, probably should have guessed that neither of them would believe Mina's, but Kyoka trailed off when she realized something. Wait, can we still call it a theory even if it's the truth? For the Autobots sake, let's call it a theory. Momo replied with an amused smile. Now let's go in, class starts in a few minutes. As the 6 teens all entered, however, they were immediately picked out by a certain voice. Hey guys, I'm assuming ya heard the news. The group craned their heads around to see Eijiro Kirishima waving them down, ushering them toward his and Denki Kaminari's tables. The spiky redhead's eyes widened, however, the moment he saw what Mina was holding. Gah, Ishido, what the heck? Denki also reeled back after seeing it. You seriously brought it to school? We thought you were just kidding. Well, duh, of course I was serious, guys. Mina beamed as she set it next to her desk, making the frog girl, Suyu Asui, jump a little. I mean, why wouldn't I show it off? Sue put a finger to her chin as she stared at the hunk of metal. Well, at least that means you aren't the only one who's brought a chunk of meteorite to school, then, ribbit. Mina blinked a couple times in confusion, along with the others as well. What are you talking about, Sue? Over here, Mina. The group moved around to see another one of their classmates approaching them. She was a rather tall girl with scaly gray skin and short, choppy black hair that went slightly down past her chin. She had dark eyes and sharp teeth, with equally sharp nails to match. She was Kata Kiryu of Seat 19, and she did not appear happy as she lifted her own hunk of twisted metal under her arm. Look familiar. The 6 teens were all aghast at the sight of the metal, though of course, Kyoka, Izuku and Momo were the most surprised. "Keita, holy crap, you have one of those too," Kyoka exclaimed. Keita grumbled a bit as she dropped the medal to the floor. "Yep, and it's kinda pissed me off." She sneered down toward the metal chunk with contempt. "One of those damn meteors landed right in my family's backyard last night. Right in the middle of our swimming pool. Grr." She reared her leg back and kicked the metal, not even caring that her foot now had a slight pain in it. "Stupid hunk of junk. Now I've gotta help my dad shop for some new tile after school so we can fix it over the weekend." The group stared down at the hunk of metal, with Kyoka whispering to Izuku, "Man, whoever landed there had some excellent aim." Izuku hummed a deadpan agreement, immediately sensing her sarcasm before Kyoka sent an apologetic gaze to her Soro Parts Quirk user friend. "Man, sorry that had to happen, Keita. That sucks big time." "Yeah, but hey, it could have been worse." Keita shrugged. "It could have hit our house and we all could have died, so glad that didn't happen." "I hope you realize the irony in what you just said, Dino girl." Kyoka smirked. Wait, what? I don't," but then, Keita cut herself off when she realized what Kyoka meant, and before long, she broke out into a big smile and belted out a hearty laugh. "Bah ha ha ha. Oh god, Kyo, you definitely know how to cheer a girl up. Thanks for that." Kyoka gave her a thumbs up before Keita shifted her sights over to Mina. "So, Mina, you got a hunk of debris yourself." She nudged her head over to Eijiro and Denki. "These guys told us that you three saw a couple of meteorites land where you were, right?" Mina's own smile returned and she nodded enthusiastically. "Oh, heck yeah. And did they tell you about my theory?" At his desk, Denki couldn't help but wear a bemused smile. "Hey, the crackpot idea that shape-shifting aliens were riding on those meteors." He shook his head and sighed. "Ishido, I swear, you watch way too much sci-fi." "Oh, not you too." Mina belted out, her brows furrowed in frustration. "I'm sick and tired of no one believing me." Eijiro shot his friend a sympathetic grin. Hey, it's not like it's bad idea, Ishido. It's just a bit less grounded in reality than others." Mina feigned a gasp. "Ah, Kirishima, how could you? I hoped you'd be in my corner for this." Hey, come on, ya know I'm in your corner, but I'm just saying that there could be other explanations for what we saw." Eijiro gave a shrug. "Besides, in the kind of world we live in, pretty much anything can happen. It could be aliens, or it could be something else. Who's to say? Well, I say you should all shut pie holes before I shut 'em for ya." Everyone immediately stopped talking and set their attention to the far side of the room, with a couple members of the group even shooting scowls at who just spoke. A certain ashen blonde was seen glaring at the 9 of them, his feet propped up on the table with an annoyed expression. Katsuki Bakugo grumbled at the group and crossed his arms. "Seriously, the fact that you're even arguing about the existence of aliens of all things is seriously pathetic." Kyoka narrowed her eyes at the red-eyed student, whom she despised with a passion ever since finding out about his history with bullying Izuku. The fact that Izuku himself still saw the makings of a true hero inside that guy was still utterly baffling to her, and if it were up to her, she'd snitch on him as soon as possible. But, out of respect for her best friend, she promised Izuku that she wouldn't tell anyone, for now, at least. "The moment that asshat slips up, I'm telling someone." She placed her hands on her hips and countered, "No one asked you, blow hard. If Mina wants to believe aliens exists, then that should be fine. PSH, whatever." Katsuki brushed off. "Not like it matters anyway." He glanced around and saw that Izuku was particularly interested in his surroundings, and he seemed to be pretty nervous, too. So naturally, he called him out on it. Actin', pretty shifty there, Deku. Anything y'all wanna spill?" "Ah. Well, no, and not really." Izuku craned his head down, pressing his fingers together nervously. I was just thinking over everything from last night is all, Kachan." He saw Bakugo roll his eyes and huff again, the explosive blonde returning his attention to the window while Izuku sighed once again. Suddenly, though, Tenya had zoomed right up to the front desk and spread his arms out. "Attention! Homeroom class is about to begin. Everyone is to cease conversation and take their seats." The rest of the students followed Tenya's instructions as Momo furrowed her brow at Katsuki, making her way to her own seat. "Well, he seems pleasant today." "Oh, a real peach." Kyoka emphasized as she and Izuku sat down at their desks. Originally, Izuku had been seated directly behind Katsuki. But, after asking both Mezzo Shoji and Mr. Aizawa, she had gotten the okay to have the tentacle quirk user switch seats with him, just so that he wouldn't have to be so close to the asshat. She sent him a smile as he sat down, which he returned with gusto. So, ready for something normal compared to the last couple of days, celery stick. Ha, you know it. Izuku took out his notebook and opened up to a blank page. After everything that's happened, a normal class is just what I need. At her own desk, Mina craned her head around and leaned back toward Suyu. So, oh. The pink girl gasped after almost falling back, only for the frog girl to catch her at the last second. All the same, Mina giggled and asked, "Who do you think's gonna be teaching us today?" "No idea," Sue admitted. Mr. Aizawa's still recovering from his injuries, so. Clunk. Just then, the sound of the door sliding open and stopping alerted them all to the arrival of Mr. Shota Aizawa himself. Everyone's jaws dropped at the sight of the dark-haired man, his entire face covered in bandages aside from his eyes, which were still bloodshot as always. His arm was also in a sling, leaving him looking like a walking mummy. "Morning class," he muffled out. "Mr. Aizawa." The entire class erupted. Denki in particular couldn't believe his eyes. Whoa, what a pro. Coming in even when injured like that. Tenya abruptly stood up and bowed to the man respectfully. "Mr. Aizawa, I'm glad that you're okay, sir." Ochako was a bit more concerned, however. "You call that okay? My well-being is irrelevant right now," Aizawa remarked, overhearing the young brunette. "What's more important is that your fight's not over yet." A wave of concern went through nearly the entire class, their focus intently set on Aizawa in preparation for bad news. After this brief pause, though, Aizawa dropped a bombshell on the class. "The UA Sports Festival is about to start." "The Sports Festival?" The entire class echoed again. "Yes." Eijiro shot up out of his seat, his fists raised to the sky. "Let's go kick some ass." But then Denki stepped in and reined his pal in a bit, pushing him back into his seat. Hold up just a sec." The blonde set a questioning gaze up to his teacher. "Mr. Aizawa, you sure that's a good idea? I mean, going through with the sports festival after, well, you know what, sounds kinda risky." As weird as it is, Battery Brain has a point. Kyoka agreed, making Denki falter a bit in the process. Holding it right after a big villain attack doesn't sound like the smart move. Undeterred, Aizawa continued, "You make an excellent point. In fact, I argued for the games to at least be delayed until we were sure that nothing would happen." A sigh escaped his lips before pressing on. "But apparently the administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat's been neutralized and that the school's still safe. Plus, they're beefing up security compared to past years." He placed a hand on his desk as he made his way from behind it to the front. "This event is a huge opportunity for you students, so it's not exactly something we can cancel because of a few villains. Our sports festival is one of the most watched events in the entire world. In the past, that honor belonged to the Olympics, but since quirks started appearing, those games have been drastically reduced in both size and viewership. For anyone who cares about competition, there's only one tournament that matters, and that's the UA Sports Festival." Momo nodded at that. "Yes, and top heroes everywhere will be watching." She clenched her fist in determination. "This is where you get scouted." Denki smiled and added, "Yeah, that's right. After graduating, long of students join pro agencies that scout them during these games as sidekicks." "Yeah, but that's as far as some people go." Kyoka shrugged. "They miss their chance to go indie and stay eternal sidekicks," she trailed off as she eyed Denki. "In fact, that's probably where you're headed. Kinda dumb." In front of her, Izuku had to stifle a laugh, both at Kyoka's words and the priceless expression on Kaminari's face after being totally owned. But that didn't stop Kyoka from hearing that little chuckle, and she smiled back at him. "It's true that joining a famous agency can garner you greater experience and popularity," Aizawa continued. "That's why the festival matters. If you wanna go pro, this event can open a path for you in the future. 1 chance a year, 3 chances a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss these games. So don't slack off on your training, or else you'll be left in the dust. Understand?" "Yes sir." The class chanted, "Good," but just as he was about to walk off, Aizawa stopped and raised a single finger. "Oh, and one more thing. I'll be substituting for All Might during your heroics class. He's been preoccupied this morning assessing the damage from those meteors last night." The tired man furrowed his brow to the students. "And don't expect me to go easy on you, got it?" He received a slew of nervous nods from the class and waved to them as he departed. Good, class dismissed, but just as he was about to walk out, he saw 2 heaps of scrap sitting next to the door. It piqued his interest for a second, but in the end, I'm too tired and hurt to care right now. I need rest before the next class. With that thought in his head, Aizawa walked out, much to Mina's relief. A couple hours later at lunchtime, the entire class were finally able to talk amongst themselves, and Eijiro was absolutely pumped. Okay, those villains definitely sucked, but man, I'm psyched for these games. Along with him were Keita, Rikido Sato and Fumikage Tokiyami, the 3 of them all feeling the excitement radiating off of Eijiro. Heck yeah, Keita pumped a fist. We put on a good show and we're sure to impress all the pros. Hell yeah. Sato punched a fist into his palm. This is the whole reason I'm here. Can't wait. We get so few chances. Tokiyami nodded. We have to make the most of it. As everyone else conversed about the sports festival, showing their excitement in varying ways, Izuku had to take a step back in astonishment. Whoa, this is gonna be nuts. Everyone's so excited. Well, of course we are. Tenya promptly stood with his arms extended out to his sides. We enrolled in this school with the sole aim to become heroes. Just as quickly, the bespectacled young man began squirming and fidgeting in place, moving his fists and hips in awkward ways. So naturally, we're all getting fired up. Whoa, slow your roll there, champ. Kyoka remarked with a sarcastic smirk. You're out of control. This got both her and Izuku laughing as Tenya's face faulted, leading to the earphone jack user eyeing her best friend. But he's got a point, you must be pretty excited, too, right Izuku? She tilted her head to him with a genuine smile. Besides, I think you could do pretty good in the games, personally. Her words easily caused Izuku to blush, and it didn't help with the cute way she tilted her head. Over the course of the past couple of months since they'd known each other, Izuku had noticed that he had a bit of an attraction to Kyoka. And then it went from a bit to a full-on crush over the course of a couple weeks, which only made him more nervous about it. God, I have it bad. All the same, though, he swallowed his fear and gave a small laugh. Haha, wow, really? Yeah, I mean, if you can get a handle on your quirk before then, I bet you'd be a beast. This made Izuku's eyebrows snap up, surprised at the amount of determination in Kyoka's voice. We should definitely see if our new friends can help ya train with that. Knowing what she meant right off the bat, Izuku couldn't help but brighten up at the idea. Hey, that's a great idea. Let's. Midoriya, Iida, Kyoka. The greenette was halted when a rather intense voice spoke up from behind him, and then the trio turned around to see Ochako giving them all an equally intense gaze and manic grin, taking them by surprise. Let's all do our best in the sports festival. Tenya gasped and stepped back a bit. Uraraka. Kyoka pointed nervously to the gravity quirk user. What the heck happened to your face? Oh my word, Momo uttered as she came over to the group. It's like her personality did a complete 180. A loud growl came from Ochacos' lips as she raised her fist into the air, her intense expression not letting up for a second. Everyone, I'm gonna do my best. A series of supportive, if nervous agreements came from her friends before she faced everyone else. I said I'm gonna do my best, do you hear me? As she went on, however, Momo couldn't help but grow more intrigued, along with Izuku and everyone else in their friend group. Something was definitely off about their friend, and they were going to have to ask her about it soon. Hours later, the final bell rang and school was officially out for the day. On their way out, Izuku, Kyoka, Momo, Iida and Ochako grouped up once again, striking up a conversation about the sports festival once again. Eventually, though, they had made it outside, and once out there, the raven-haired beauty decided to make her inquiry known to the brunette. Say, Ochako, I've been wondering. What is it, Yaomomo? Ochako tilted her head. Well, you showed us a very different side of yourself back there when you were psyching yourself up for the sports festival. Momo pointed out. And it made me wonder, what exactly made you decide to want to come to UA in the first place? Ochacos' eyes widened at the question and she stopped, all while everyone else started talking. Hey, yeah, I've been wondering about that, too. Izuku piped up. You did seem pretty eager about competing. As he noted that, though, he saw Ochako bite her lip nervously. Uraraka, are you alright? Oh, yeah, I'm totally fine, believe me. Ochako waved. It's just that, well, she pressed her palms together and bowed her head to the others. Let me preface this by saying that I definitely want to help people, I really truly do, but at the same time, not being dirt poor would be really nice, too. The gravity quirk user's words were quite surprising, but not unexpected to most. So, you're in it for the money? Kyoka asked. To get rich. Ochako immediately rubbed the back of her head in apprehension. Well, when you put it like that it sounds really self-centered, but yeah, kinda. She began waving her arm erratically toward them all. I'm sorry if it sounds greedy. The young girl lowered her head shamefully. You guys must all have such admirable motivations. I just hope you don't think any less of me. Immediately realizing her error, Kyoka made to apologize quickly. Oh god, I'm sorry, Chaco. Seriously, I didn't mean to sound so judgy, really. Hey, it's alright. Ochako smiled. I get it, it's not really what anyone expects to hear when someone wants to be a hero, but for me, it's the truth. And we certainly don't think any less of you for it. Tenya proclaimed, raising his hands up for emphasis. Your goal is to support your well-being, which is a perfectly admirable ambition to have. Momo nodded, agreeing with every word. Eid is right. It's just a little surprising is all. And a little curious. She put a finger to her cheek with a worried gaze. Did you say you were dirt poor? Well, not exactly dirt poor. Ochako corrected. That's a bit hyperbolic on my part. But my family business isn't exactly doing all that well, either. The girl began to mess with her hair absent-mindedly as she explained. You see, my family owns a construction company, but we haven't had any work lately, so we're almost broke. She glanced off to the side sadly. This isn't exactly something I'd tell others, but then, Izuku suddenly had an epiphany. Oh, wait, I get it. The brunette smiled to the others and elaborated on his thought. I bet if she gets licensed, she can use her quirk to help bring costs down a lot. Hey, yeah, Kyoka agreed, understanding instantly. They could save big on heavy equipment, maybe even sell some of it. I know, right. Ochako pointed at Izuku and Kyoka with a vigorous nod. I've been telling my dad that for years. She sighed and her shoulders slumped. But, he and my mom have always put me first before everything, and it's super frustrating. After a few seconds, though, a determined expression formed on her features. I'm going to become a pro. I'll sign with a good agency, help lots of people, and make plenty of money. Then I'll be able to help my parents have an easy life. Her four friends all stood in awe at Ochako's mini-speech, all of them astonished by just how passionate she was about her goal. It was only a matter of time before Tenya broke the silence with a great, over-the-top applause. So noble. Bravo. Bravo. Bravissimo, Gia. He was brought to a halt when Kyoka jabbed him in the side with one of her jacks, making him promptly fall to the ground. And that'll be enough, ya big ham. She walked up to her brunette friend and placed a hand on each of her shoulders. But he's right, Chaco, you do have a great goal in mind, and I hope that you're able to reach that goal. She gave her a wink and a thumbs up. Just keep your head up high and your path on the right one, and I guarantee you'll be a great hero. Ochako smiled back, her determination bolstered. I will. Thanks, Kyoka, Look out. The gang all whipped their heads up at the sudden shout, only to see a certain head of pink hair coming their way pretty fast. And this time, it wasn't Mina. The teens all yelped and ducked off in different directions, all except for Izuku, who managed to get rammed into pretty hard. Bam. The inheritor of One for All and the pink-haired blur came crashing down onto the sidewalk, kicking up a cloud of dust. Once it dissipated, though, Izuku groaned and rubbed his head. What the ack? Izuku couldn't help but cry out again at the sight of a familiar set of yellow eyes staring him point blank in the face, eyes that had irises that just so happened to have crosses in them, making them appear like scope lenses. Hatsume. Hiya, muscles. True to form, Mei Hatsume was the one who rammed into Izuku, and was still draped over him with her chest pressed right up against his. Which meant that, well, let's just say that Izuku had to make sure that his eyes didn't go too far down. If anything, though, Mei was utterly oblivious to their compromising position. "How's it goin'?" Off to the side, Kyoka felt her eye twitch in irritation at the sight. "Oh, come the fuck on," she shouted in her head. First Mina, now Mei. Does Izuku just have a bubbly girl magnet in him? But, upon further thought, Kyoka took in a couple deep breaths, reminding herself that Mei was her friend and she shouldn't be upset with her about this. Besides, I'm pretty sure she doesn't like Izuku like that. Goddamn it, brain, can we not go there right now? Shaking that thought out of her head, Kyoka went over with Momo to help pull Mei off of their friend. "Mei, what the hell are you doing? And how were you moving so fast?" Momo followed up. "Aha, funny you should ask that." Mei gestured down to a pair of metal boots on her feet, ones that appeared to have jet engines in the heels. "Behold, baby number 626. She slipped the boots off her feet and presented them to everybody. Granted, it's just a prototype, but with a little fine-tuning and some more additions, they should be ready for the sports festival in a couple of weeks. Izuku immediately sat up, his interest piqued. Wait, you're saying that you can use gear in the sports festival? Well, I know that the support course can. Mei tapped her chin thoughtfully. Not too sure about the other courses, though. Ya might have to ask the teachers. It was then that the pink-haired girl noticed that Ochako and Tenya were standing off to the side, and he pointed straight to them. Ah, hey, you're the two from this morning. Specs and rosy cheeks, right? The duo flinched in surprise at the nicknames, with Tenya clearing his throat to correct her. Actually, my name is Tenya Iida, and yes, we met this morning. I believe you are Mei Hatsume, correct? Yep, that's me. Mei saluted cheerfully. But trust me, I'll be able to remember, Specs, better. Nicknames are a lot easier, ya know. Ochako couldn't help but sulk a bit as she touched her cheek with her finger. My cheeks aren't that rosy, are they? Before Tenya could argue for his own nickname to be dropped, Mei promptly turned back to her established friend group. So, have Brian and Sadie gotten here, yet? They said they'd pick us up after school, right? Pretty sure they did. Kyoka twirled one of her jacks around her finger as she began scanning the parking lot. But I don't really see them any. Honk honk. Before any of them knew it, a pair of loud car horns suddenly sounded off from down the street, prompting them all to spin around. The teens were greeted by the sight of a yellow 1973 Volkswagen Beetle driving toward the school, along with a pink and white Lotus Elise revving alongside it. In the driver's seat of the Beetle was a young blonde man in his late teens wearing a yellow jacket with a black undershirt, while in the Lotus behind him was a young woman about his age with pink hair. She was also wearing a black undershirt, though her jacket was just about as pink as her hair. One thing they both had in common though, was the fact that their eyes were a brilliant blue. The duo pulled up to the curb and smiled to the group, waving down Izuku, Kyoka, Mei and Momo in particular. Hey guys. The pink-haired girl greeted as they all came walking up. She eyed the Momo with a quirked brow. So, Momo, how was class? It was fine, Sadie. Momo assured her, family friend from overseas. We actually had a very exciting announcement that I can't wait to tell you about. Sadie seemed to brighten up at that. Ooh, sounds exciting. You guys can tell me once we get to Korusan, okay? Your father's expecting us there soon. After all, she trailed off as she saw Ochako and Tenya standing off to the side, so she gave them another little wave. Hey, it's you two again. She nudged her head over to Izuku and the others. I'm guessing you guys are just attached to my friend's hips. The duo snapped their eyebrows up while the other four all chuckled to themselves. Tenya cleared his throat, attempting to regain a bit of composure. Ahem, well, I wouldn't exactly say that. Though I would say that I consider myself a good friend of Midoriya, Jiro and Yaoyorozu since we share the same class. Yeah, exactly. Ochako beamed as she leaned toward the pink-haired girl curiously. So, how was your day, Sadie? Sadie gave a shrug. Nothing major, she pointed up to Brian with her thumb. Brian's been showing me around Musutafu, so I'm at least a little familiar with the place. I'm gonna be in Japan for a long time, so best to know where the heck I'm going. Oh, well that's cool. Ochako nodded before greeting the blonde mute in the beagle. Hi, Brian. At that moment, Brian's radio kicked on and he began speaking to her through it. ZRKT, hello, ZRKT, Ochako. ZRKT, how are you today? Ochako raised her fists in determination. Oh, I'm doing awesome. You wouldn't believe how psyched I am. Oh my gosh. Just as she raised her arm up, Ochako caught sight of her watch, and her eyes widened in horror. I got so distracted. I'm going to miss my train. Her hands went to her head in panic. And it leaves in 10 minutes. Tenya suddenly let out a gasp of his own and checked his watch as well. Oh no, so am I. This is disastrous. We'll never make it in time. However, Kyoko was quick to interject. Oh yes you will. The earphone jack user eyed Sadie with a small smirk. Hey, Sadie, you think we have time to make a small detour before we head to Korusan? Oh, you bet. Sadie answered, with her and Brian opening their doors immediately. Come on, hop in and let's go. Ochako and Tenya let out a pair of happy laughs as the former clapped her hands together, though she made sure not to touch her fingertips together. Ah, really? Awesome. Thank you so much, Sadie. With that, everyone climbed into their respective rides, with Ochako, Momo and Mei climbing into Sadie's car while Izuku, Kyoka and Tenya rode with Brian. Within the span of 5 quick minutes, the gang had made it to the nearest station, with maybe only a few speed limits broken. Ochako and Tenya immediately bailed from their rides the moment they pulled up, both breathing a sigh of relief. Phew. Just made it. However, the bespectacled young man wore a serious expression as he eyed Brian. Indeed, but if we were not due to leave any moment, I would give you a severe lecture in the dangers of speeding, my friend. He resumed his stiff chopping motions with his hands once more. What you did was incredibly unsafe, I hope you know that. ZRKT, born to be WLD, ZRKT, Brian replied with a wink. Izuku poked his head out of the back window, sending his friend a sympathetic grin. Come on, Iida. You guys got here in one piece, right? Yeah specs, no need to be so uptight. Mei added as she stood up and out from Sadie's car. Ya can't make a machine without breaking a few parts in the process, if ya get what I mean. Tenya deadpanned toward her. Miss Hatsume, considering you're the one who is literally standing up in the car, I believe it's clear which one of us is in the better position here. Mei responded with a sour grimace to the blue-haired boy before pulling herself back in, and Tenya gave a small sigh. Well, in any case, I suppose we should get going. He and Ochako sent one final wave to their classmates. We'll see you all next week, and honk honk. The teens all yelped in surprise before snapping their heads around behind them. However, when they looked, neither Ochako or Tenya were prepared for what they saw next. But at the same time, Izuku, Kyoka, Mei and Momo couldn't help but break out into massive grins of their own. Meanwhile, Brian and Sadie watched on in silence, but nonetheless were very happy at the sight of who was approaching them. Coming down the road, hauling a massive trailer on its hitch, was a big red, white and blue flat-nosed Freightliner tractor-trailer truck, and the symbol of peace himself was behind the steering wheel. Haha, I am here, All Might announced with a wave of his hand, the #1 hero wearing one of his own merch hats on his head for a trucker hat. Pulling up alongside the road while hauling cargo. All Might, sir. Tenya exclaimed, still trying to comprehend what he was seeing. What is all this about? Young Iida, young Uraraka. Good to see you both. All Might set his sights down to his other students, along with Brian and Sadie as well. As well as all of you. I can tell that you all must have had a wonderful day. I'm guessing you're excited about the big sports festival announcement. Kyoka balled up a fist and nodded to the hero. Heck yeah, we are. But, ya didn't exactly answer Iida's question, All Might. She pointed over to the large trailer attached to the semi-truck with a knowing look. What exactly are you in the big boss truck hauling? All Might jerked his thumb back toward the trailer, too. Oh, this. Just a bunch of debris from the meteors last night. We picked up every piece we could and now I'm taking it to Korusan to dump it off at a secure facility. Ochako couldn't help but tilt her head, while also noticing something else. He's heading to Corsusan too. Weird, she eventually shook that thought off before asking further, but wouldn't it be easier for you to just, carry the trailer all the way to Coruscant? Why drive all the way there? The symbol of peace belted out a mighty laugh at that. Ah ha ha. A good question, young Uraraka. While it's true that I can do that, I sometimes prefer to do things the old-fashioned way. He raised a finger up to her and Iida. Sometimes it gets a bit boring doing things how I usually do them. All Might sent the group one final salute. Well, I should get this cargo to its intended destination. I'll see you all in school next week, alright. Farewell. With that, the truck's engine started up again and All Might pulled back onto the road, rounding the nearest corner while waving toward his students. We should probably get going as well. Momo reminded as she and the others faced Tenya and Ochako again. Have a nice weekend you two. Yeah, we'll see you later. Ochako and Tenya waved to them one final time as Brian and Sadie pulled away from the curb, honking their horns to them in goodbye. They drove down the street and turned at the same corner that All Might had gone down, which only served to reignite Ochako's inquiry. Hey, Iida. The blue-haired teen glanced down to his friend. What is it, Uraraka? Isn't it strange how everyone's going to Coruscant, along with All Might? The brunette tilted her head and scratched her cheek in thought. I mean, it's really weird how they're just going to the same place, right? Tenya placed a finger to his chin, thinking it over as well. You're right. It is a strange coincidence, Chu Wu. But before they could put any further thought into it, the duo were pulled back into the reality by the sound of a train whistle, leading them both to scream out in panic. We have no time to think about this. We need to get going. Crap, you're right. Let's go. Ochako and Tenya immediately spun around and headed toward their respective trains, unaware that, indeed, the Yellow Beetle and Pink Lotus were following the red and blue semi out of the city as they spoke. Inside of said semi-truck, All Might reached down to the CB radio, picking up the mic to speak into it. Breaker, this is the mighty AM callin' out at ya, Big Bot. Do you read me, over. The radio then switched frequencies before responding back, though the rather low, gravelly yet kind voice that responded sounded a little unsure. Yes, I read you loud and clear, All Might. Namely because you are driving me. Ah ha ha. Oh, I know, Optimuss. I just always wanted to do that. All Might gave a pat to the Autobot leader's dashboard in reassurance. It's how truckers on our planet talk to one another, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Ah, I see. Optimuss responded. Well, in that case, that is a big 10-4 on my part, my friend. Once again, All Might laughed in amusement, all while Bumblebee and RC pulled up alongside Optimuss. Autobots, roll out. The two disguised Autobots, along with the humans inside of them, let out a round of cheers as they finally pulled out of the city of Musudafu, headed straight for Coruscant and their new headquarters. Chapter 2, Team Prime. There was an unrelenting smile beaming across Izuku's features as the convoy of Autobots drew ever closer to Coruscant, with excitement bubbling up inside of him with every mile. And why wouldn't he be? They were on their way to the Autobots' new base of operations on Earth and he were ecstatic. He and Kyoka sat in the backseat of Bumblebees as they watched the highway fly on by, all while the disguised Yellow Bot himself played some of their favorite songs on his radio, or rather, many of his favorite songs. Izuku and Kyoka had quickly discovered that Bumblebee was a big fan of 1980s music, so most of the time, that's what they heard being piped through the speakers. Dare to believe you can survive. You hold the future in your hands. There is a place where dreams survive. It's time to take a stand. You can win if you dare. Granted, they liked the 80s music, too, but Kyoka was starting to become a bit weary of it. Yo, B. The punk girl's call made the blonde holoform in the front seat perk his head up, glancing back to her with a raised brow. As much as I love 80s hair metal, you think we could change things up a bit? We've pretty much listened to it all week. B's expression was a bit unreadable, but soon enough, he gave a shrug and smiled to her, nodding in approval. Before they knew it, the sound of the radio switching gears graced their ears, and then, the sound of guitar riffs and heavy drums came at them quick. I remember black skies, the lightning all around me. I remembered each flash as time began to blur. Like a startling sign that fate had finally found me. And your voice was all I heard, that I'd get what I'd deserve. Oh hell yeah, Kyoka hollered as she began to headbang when the guitar hit, all while belting out the lyrics, so give me reason to prove me wrong. To wash this memory clean. Let the floods cross the distance in your eyes. Give me reason, to fill this hole. Connect the space between. Let it be enough to reach the truth that lies, across this new divide. She threw her head back and let out a laugh. Ha ha. A classic. Great choice, B. Bumblebee sent her a thumbs up while Izuku's grin widened. Ha, wow. Kyoka, if you can sing that good, I don't really understand why you're nervous to do it in front of people who aren't me. He saw Kyoka's eyes widen as her cheeks flushed slightly. I mean, you really are good, you know. Immediately, Kyoka twirled one of her jacks around her finger, sheepishly looking away from the greenette. Ah, geez, Green Bean, you're too nice, really. Hey, I'm serious. Izuku assured, blushing a little. He continued. He was doing his best to keep being as bold as he was at the moment, and he didn't want to let that slip away from him. Why you're singing, it's, honestly some of the best I've ever heard. Kyoka let out a short breath, still taking in all of the compliments. Izuku, why do you have to be such a cinnamon roll? She leaned back and trained her eyes up to the roof of the car, concentrating on answering his initial question. Well, if you want the truth, I'm afraid of how people will judge me on it. I know, it's stupid, but I'm not exactly good with being the center of attention. She heard Izuku let out a small chuckle. Hey, I can understand that, for sure. He rubbed the back of his neck nervously. Though I think you know that by now, so. Yeah, I do. Kyoka grinned back to him and she sat back up straight. But hey, we're working through it, right? Hell, I'd say your confidence has already skyrocketed since we first joined UA. Well, I wouldn't say skyrocketed, but you're right, things have gotten better. The one for all inheritors sent her a grateful smile and a nod. And I really couldn't have done it without your help, Kyoka, so in return, I'm gonna do my best to help you gain the self-confidence you need to perform. The perplexed tilted her head and quirked a brow at her best friend. Hey, well that's definitely a tall order, but knowing you and how you like to help, you probably won't take no for an answer. She saw Izuku shake his head, leading her to let out another sigh. Man, you're too stubborn for your own good, Izuku, keep that up and your confidence will skyrocket. Izuku could do nothing more but give a shrug. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? With that, the two fell into a peaceful silence again as their drive continued. But, as Izuku's mind drifted, he couldn't help but think back to the conversation they had with Uraraka back at school, and why exactly she wanted to become a hero. But it was then that Izuku realized something else. Hey, Kyoka. Yeah, what's up? I was just thinking, and I don't think I've ever asked this to you. Izuku turned his head back to her to meet her eyes. Why did you want to come to UA and learn to be a hero? Kyoka's eyebrows rose up in surprise, taken off guard by the question. But at the same time, she also had to admit that topic hadn't ever come up in conversation before. Huh, ya know, I think you're right. I don't think we ever talked about that. Her smile came back before she gave a shrug. Well, we know Ida's reasons and now we know Ochacos too, so I guess it's only fair that we finally share ours. Izuku nodded eagerly. Yeah, exactly. HM. Well, if you must know, Kyoka set her sights out the window once again. It's partially due to my love of music. Wow, really? Izuku muttered with widened eyes. How so? Kyoka tapped her jacks together as she explained. Hey, well, when I was really little, I actually loved performing for my parents. We had tons of play instruments that I'd just jam out on, and seeing them smile when I did, it just made me want to be a musician more and more. So I could see other people smile at my music, too. She brushed a lock of hair behind her ear as she then shifted gears. But then, as I got older, I saw what all the heroes were doing to help people and keep them safe, and I saw how they all made people smile as well. After a moment's pause, she rolled her eyes and scoffed a little. I know it sounds totally corny and stuff, but I want to be a hero so I can dedicate myself to others and help everyone keep on smiling. Kyoka was met with silence for a good few moments, which she immediately took as a bad sign. Hey, see, told you it was, huh. But, When she faced back to Izuku, she was met with a stunned expression, his lips parted in shock as he seemed to be processing what he just heard. After a few seconds, though, Izuku finally spoke. Kyoka, what you just said, it's almost exactly the same reason why I want to be a hero. Get out of town, Kyoka muttered. And no, seriously, it's true. Izuku beamed excitedly. I mean, I'm sure you probably know this by now, but my inspiration is All Might. Understatement of the century. Izuku slightly faltered at the good-natured jab, but kept going nonetheless. Well, yeah, but growing up, my motivation for wanting to be a hero was for everyone to see my fearless smile and feel safe. He balled a determined fist as his gaze met Kyoka's in earnest. And that way, I could be just like him. Once again, a small pause went through the entire vehicle before Izuku sheepishly shrunk a little. I mean, if you want corny, I don't think it gets any cornier than why I want to be. Hush. Kyoka put a hand on Izuku's shoulder, returning his earnest smile. Dude, as if I didn't have enough of a reason to consider you my best friend. How the hell did we go this long before bringing this up to one another? Hey, I honestly don't know. Izuku admitted, but it's definitely cool that we both have pretty similar reasons for wanting to be heroes. Kyoka gave an amused chuckle at that. Yeah, maybe we should form a team when we graduate called Team Smile, or something. Izuku immediately brightened up and took in a breath to start suggesting plans, only for Kyoka to raise a finger and halt him. Don't take that too seriously, Green Bean, at least, not the name. We'd have to come up with a better name. Oh, well, yeah, that much is obvious. Izuku agreed before both of them broke out into a chorus of laughter, which a certain holoform in the front seat couldn't help but grin at. Those two, Bumblebee thought to himself. Yeah, they'll be just fine, provided Izuku finds the nerve to ask the big question. Just then, however, Bumblebee heard a certain sound greet his audio processors, that being the sharp sound of Optimuss brakes letting out a sharp blast of air before slowly pulling off to the side of the road and onto a very well-hidden paved driveway that led down off the bank. In front of him, RC followed Optimuss down the road and Bumblebee brought up the rear, taking Izuku and Kyoka by surprise as he switched the radio once again. ZRKT, you have now arrived at your destination, ZRTK. Whoa, seriously. Kyoka poked her head out of her rear window to take a look around. They were near a rather large embankment that was surrounded by foliage, while also being very near the coast. She glanced upward to see the main road disappearing behind her, with the path they were taking being cut off from the rest by a set of electronic gates that said, "No trespassing," on each one. I thought this place hadn't been used in a while. It hasn't. The perplexed snapped her head around to see Momo poking her head out of RC's window as well, calling over to her with her hand near her mouth. I'm thinking that they must have found a way to get electricity back down here. Sector 7, ya think? Probably. Momo assumed. Either way, this place is fairly well hidden, so the Autobots should be okay to stay here. Just then, RC herself piped up. And if there is the odd person who does trespass here, Red Alert is going to help Sector 7 set up a state-of-the-art security system around the entire base's perimeter. Trust me, you're gonna get a kick out of it. After a few moments, though, the trees started to give way to a vast opening, accompanied by the sight and smell of the salty sea. Ooh, and here we are. All three Autobots pulled to a halt and everyone began to disembark, with the teens grouping up with All Might to give the Autobots space. And then, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Detaching himself from the trailer he was pulling, the red and blue semi-truck began to convert into his robot mode, with multiple parts swinging out of its frame. The sides of the truck folded out to create the arms while the trailer hitch extended downward to make the legs and feet. The rest of the cab compressed to form the torso, the windshield acting as pectorals while the grille formed the robot's abs. Optimus Prime's faceplated visage rose up from his cab and he set his sights onto the absolutely massive 3-story warehouse just a few yards away from them. He then craned his head down to the humans, all of them gazing up at him in absolute awe. No matter how many times I see it, I still can't believe it. All Might proclaimed as he set a hand to his head. Optimus nodded down to the #1 hero. I can definitely understand why, my friend. But, As you can see, we are here. He extended a hand toward the base and said, "My human friends, allow me to present to you, our new headquarters. Autobot Outpost Omega-1. Without missing a beat, May let out an excited giggle before running up to the large warehouse near the sea. Hee hee, awesome. Last one in is a rusted lug nut. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Before she could even get within a yard of the new base though, the Lotus Elise behind her began to convert into her robot mode as well. The arms of the robot came out from the sides as the midsection of the hood folded down to create her breastplate. The front wheels folded inward as the two remaining sides of the front moved up and settled on her shoulders. The rear of the car began to unfurl and collapse into a pair of long, slender legs that had the wheel wells on her calves and the rear wheels themselves had folded into her thighs. RC's rounded helm popped out from inside her chest, completing her transformation before she reached down and plucked May up by the back of her shirt. "Whoa there, easy on the engine there, May. Hey." May crossed her arms indignantly, which thankfully prevented the rest of her shirt from being lifted up. "RC, what's the big idea? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK." Behind the Femme, the red and blue semi-truck and yellow Beetle could be seen converting into their robot modes as well. The Bug's front end split in half and became the smaller robot's feet, with his legs emerging from inside the vehicle itself. The rear wheels folded up to the front as the legs rotated down, exposing the arms while the rear of the vehicle came up to form the robot's back. The rest of Bumblebee's hood folded into his frame, exposing his head as the roof of the car formed his chest. "ZRKT, better look before you leap. Bumblebee is correct, May." Optimuss spoke up, raising a single finger to the young inventor. "You recall those security systems that RC mentioned, yes?" May raised a brow at the Autobot leader. "Yeah, but she said it wasn't set up yet." Optimuss, however, shook his head. "Correction, most of it isn't set up yet. Observe." Prime reached down and grabbed a decently sized rock in his hand, which was actually one that came up to the human's hip height. With a strong toss and a grunt, Optimuss chucked the rock at the warehouse, and in a flash of blue light, a large dome suddenly became visible and the rock just bounced off of it, rolling off toward the nearby beach. It was then that May was thankful she hadn't run headlong into that thing. "Oh, I see." But, within the very next second, the pink-haired genius eyes lit up like stars. "That's so cool. A protective hollow barrier," Optimuss explained as he pointed up toward the roof. "Powered by an energon projector that's wired in on the roof of the building." The humans were surprised by the security feature, to say the least. "Whoa, I didn't even notice it." Izuku shook his head. "Yeah, talk about effective." Kyoka agreed. "Where'd you guys get that?" Red Alerts kept that with him for quite a while. RC explained. "Whenever we'd make temporary bases on small planetoids to search for energon, he'd usually set that up to make sure we were well protected against Decepticons." The pink femme glanced off to the side with a small chortle. "Hey, of course, it would often run out of energon, but hopefully on this planet, we'll be able to keep it consistently powered. Provided you can find the energon for it, correct?" All Might asked. Optimus gave him a nod. "Indeed, All Might. Though that brings us to how we will find the energon." However, the Autobot commander waved the topic off for now. But that's a discussion for another time. For now, let's give you all a tour of the base, shall we? Prime reached up to the side of his head and activated his comlink. "Red Alert, do you read?" "I do, Optimus, and I am well aware of your arrival already." Red Alert responded. "Deactivating hollow barrier, now." At the medic's word, the hollow barrier lowered, allowing them to come inside. The moment Bumblebee walked into the new base, he was astounded by just how high the ceiling was in the main room. It was the first time he had seen the place, and needless to say, there was plenty of headroom for everyone. The main entry room was very spacious with high ceilings and wide catwalks along the walls. While he had a feeling that they were big enough for the Autobots to walk on, he still probably wasn't gonna risk trying lest they break under their weight. At the same time, though, he was also astounded that the doorways actually seemed to be their size as well. Heck, he guessed that even Optimus could walk through them without even ducking. ZRKT, whoa, man. ZRKT, What the heck? ZRKT, was made, ZRKT, here. Bumblebee asked through his radio. ZRKT, it's so big. Momo was quick to answer his question. Well, this factory was actually used as an automotive assembly line back in the day. She made her way over to an old pile of scrap metal that seemed to once belong to a car of some sort. My grandfather built it and a few others in hopes of starting the family's own brand of vehicle, but unfortunately, this was one business venture that didn't work out for us compared to our other ones. Once grandfather died and his inheritance was passed on to my father, he ordered all warehouses like this to shut down production as soon as possible and just focused on investing in other car companies. The others all stared at her in complete shock, with Kyoka pointing right to her. And your family didn't take a bad hit from this? Well, a little, but nothing major. Man, how loaded are you? The raven-haired beauty placed her hands on her hips with an indignant pout. Okay Jiro, we can talk about how rich I am all day or we can take a tour of the new base. Which would you rather do? Just then, however, a soft chuckle came from behind Momo, along with the light steps of metal hitting the concrete floors. HM, never a dull moment, as always. The teens all craned their heads up and smiled at the familiar sight of Windblade, the red and black, kabuki-faced jetbot smiling down to them in greeting. Hey guys, welcome to the new headquarters. Windblade, Izuku and the others waved back. How's it going? Can't complain. Windblade shrugged. Been helping spruce this place up a bit, so there's that. She set her sights over to Optimuss, RC and Bumblebee with a small nod. So, how was the big city, everyone? Did ya retrieve all the parts you could find? Optimuss sighed and crossed his arms. Well, we attempted to, at the very least. He nudged his head toward the garage door that led outside. We did bring back a cargo trailer filled with what we could salvage, however, there are even more parts still missing. I fear that the local authorities may have already cleaned up most of it. The humans were all surprised by the revelation, aside from All Might who actually helped with the retrieval. Wait, so you weren't lying back at the train station? May exclaimed. That trailer is chock full of space debris. Yep, sure is. RC confirmed. After all, those pods are made of very advanced tech, stuff that humans aren't ready for. Which is exactly why it is imperative that we retrieve the parts that were taken before we could get to them. The group were taken by surprise when another voice entered the conversation, this one rather stoic in tone. Everyone turned their heads to see a pretty tall Autobot coming their way, one that had a large, angular backpack on his back that had a siren on it. His arms and legs were all primarily blue, with his rear wheels and wheel wells adorning his legs while the doors of his alternate mode were settled on his shoulders. Where his right hand should have been was instead replaced by a red laser tool, which was the same color as his V-shaped visor that covered his optics. His helm, in turn, was primarily blue while his mouth area was silver, and the front of his Nissan Patrol alternate mode formed his chest. He gave a salute to Optimuss in greeting. Optimus Prime, welcome back. At ease, red alert. Optimuss waved off. After all, we have guests, he gestured down to the humans standing at his feet. You remember our human allies, correct? Red alert set his optics down to the humans, who all gave him a smile and a wave, or in All Might's case, a friendly salute. However, the Metabot said nothing as he continued to seemingly stare at them, or at least, the humans thought he was, they couldn't tell with that unnerving visor. The teens and Pro Hero could feel nervous sweat forming on their brows before Red Alert muttered, yes, greetings. He moved his head back up to his leader. In any case, Optimus, I heavily advise that we contact Sector 7 immediately to have them retrieve the pieces that were already collected. The humans, meanwhile, couldn't help but falter slightly at Red Alert's bluntness, with Kyoka in particular being very miffed. Well, hello to you too. She grit her teeth and grumbled, talk about rude. Optimus cleared his airways and concurred with his most trusted officer. Yes, I do plan on doing that, Red Alert, worry not. He walked up to the Metabot, standing directly next to him before leaning closer to whisper, also, I would personally advise you to not be so impolite to our allies. Remember, they are just as much a part of this as Sector 7 is. My apologies, Optimus. Red Alert bowed his head slightly. It's not my intention, I assure you. Once again, he eyed the small humans with a skeptic gaze. I simply don't think it's the best idea to have the younglings take an active role here. All Might, I can understand, but not only are the children in danger of any potential Decepticon threat, but also us. He moved his foot slightly for emphasis. One wrong move and they could be crushed underfoot. Momo, Mei and Izuku glanced nervously toward one another, but Kyoka stood defiantly. So what, you think we're dumb enough to actually walk underneath you? That was not what I was insinuating. Red Alert denied. I'm saying that we, or rather, the less careful of us Autobots, could accidentally crush you, at least in theory. Optimus placed a hand on Red Alert's shoulder. Well then, Red Alert, I will inform the rest of the team to watch where we step from now on. An excellent idea. All Might concurred with a raised fist. Speaking of, though, where is the rest of your team, Prime? I actually would have expected them to greet us right out of the gate. Currently, most of them are helping set up the ground bridge in the control room. Red Alert answered, pointing over to the doorway adjacent to them. In fact, I should probably get back to assisting them myself. Please, excuse me. With that, the medic strolled right through the doorway, leaving the 5 humans and 4 other Autobots in the room by themselves again. All Might rubbed his neck as he watched Red Alert walk off. Well, Red sure is an, interesting bot. TCH, yeah, a real buzzkill if you ask me. Kyoka scoffed. Prime gave a sigh of his own. Please forgive Red Alert for his bluntness. Kyoka moved her head back up at Optimus' words. He has been through and seen many tragedies happen during his time as a field medic during the war. It has hardened him emotionally. If you can believe it, Red was actually a pretty friendly bot back in the day. RC piped up, with Windblade and Bumblebee giving confirming nods. But then, well, you can probably guess what happened. Momo lowered her head, clearly saddened to hear that. Of course. I can't imagine what it would be like to be on the front lines like that, trying to save people from dying while others are too late to save. It must be disheartening. It is, trust me. Windblade affirmed. After a short silence, however, she tried to brighten up the mood a bit. But hey, let's not dwell on that sort of stuff, huh? This is supposed to be a good day, right? Come on, I bet you guys wanna see how our control room's coming along, right? Immediately, Mei broke out into a wide grin and she raised her hands up. Do I ever? Let's go. Without missing a beat, Mei broke into a full sprint toward the doorway Red Alert went through, going at a speed that left even All Might impressed. Ah ha ha. Well, you can't say that young Hatsume lacks enthusiasm. The #1 hero guffawed before ushering the others to go in as well. Come, students, let's see what awaits us. All Might, Izuku, Kyoka and Momo all followed the Autobots into the control room, and they were immediately met with quite the sight. Wow, it really is the ground bridge. Izuku proclaimed, seeing the massive series of rings being set up near a broken down wall. In fact, the wall appeared to have been broken just recently, which probably meant that the Autobots intentionally wrecked it in order to fit the whole ground bridge. I can't believe that you actually brought it all here. Optimus took a step up onto the ground bridge's platform and raised a hand to it. Indeed, we did. After all, better it be somewhere above the surface rather than several feet below. He set his attention to Red Alert, who was currently kneeling on the platform and working on some internal circuitry. Has the ground bridge been recalibrated accordingly, Red Alert? Nearly finished. Red Alert saluted over his shoulder, not taking his concentration off the circuits for a second. All I have to do is reroute a few more conduits and the system should be good to go. He craned his head up and called out, Bulkhead. How's the portal coming along? It's ready to go, Red. Came a deep voice from inside the series of large rings. The humans all peered into the short tunnel and saw a big, green and rather rotund Autobot come lumbering out, his footfalls heavy and thumping. The front of his Hummer H2 truck vehicle mode had formed his chest while the truck bed had formed his shoulders. The front tires were inside of his feet while his back tires stuck up out of his shoulders. His helm kind of looked like a hard hat, and his large chin was quite prominent on his face, though you would have never guessed that it was actually a chin guard. Bulkhead held a datapad in his hands, giving it a quick once-over before giving Red Alert a thumbs up. Everything's pretty much in ship shape and, oh. His optics widened and he grinned when he noticed RC, Bumblebee and the humans all there. Haha, well, what do we have here? Hey, Bulkhead, Kyoka greeted. That is your name, right? Bulkhead let out another chuckle as he stepped off the platform. Ha, and don't wear it out. Kyoka, right. He pointed to each human as he recalled their names. And your Momo, Mei and Izuku, right. Izuku couldn't help but smile at the fact that he had remembered all their names perfectly. Yeah, that's right. It's good to see you again, Bulkhead. Likewise. Bulkhead lowered his massive fist down to the humans, though by their sudden recoil, he could tell that actually startled them a bit. Oh, sorry, I was going for a fist bump, but Oh, ha, I see. Mei smiled and followed through with the greeting, with Izuku, Kyoka and Momo doing so as well. Guess the difference in size can make even a fist bump seem intimidating. The pink-haired genius eyed the ground bridge excitedly. So, is the bridge ready to be used? Not quite. Bulkhead waved his hand in denial. The setup is pretty much complete, but we currently have no energon to power it. The big green bot shrugged his large shoulders. Hopefully we can find some soon, but it's gonna take a while before we can. All Might put his fists to his hips. I see, so I take it that energon itself is not easy to find. Windblade shook her head. Oh no, energon is pretty easy for us to detect, but it's all a matter of us setting up the actual scanners for it. Windblade is correct. Red Alert piped up, the Metabot standing before reaching around to pull something from out of his backpack. It appeared to be some sort of scanning device that had a radar on its screen, though when Red Alert turned it on, it didn't appear as if anything was coming up on it. This is an energon detecting device that covers a very small radius. As you can see, though, there are no energon veins anywhere near this location. However, once Sector 7 delivers the correct computers to us, we should be able to integrate this device into them and boost the signal, which will in turn help us find the energon we require. Optimuss picked things up from there, once again setting his sights on the ground bridge. Once the scanners are boosted, we should be able to detect energon deposits all across the country, perhaps even beyond the borders of Japan as well. He then craned his head up to a rather large hole that was in the ceiling. And, if Sector 7 will allow us the use of its satellite network, we'll be able to detect deposits all across the globe. Mei's eyes lit up in excitement once more. Ooh, that sounds incredible. I definitely hope they'll let you do it. Kyoka couldn't help but give a bemused chuckle. Hey, I wouldn't get my hopes up, Hatsume. I bet they might be pretty wary of letting Cybertronians use their satellites after, well, you know what. She makes a pretty good point, Optimuss. RC concurred. I mean, from what I heard, Shatter and Dropkick must have really taken advantage of their trust pretty badly. The pink femme glanced to the side while Bumblebee gave an awkward buzz. Granted, that's not exactly anything new for Decepticons, but you'd expect that Sector 7's gonna be on their toes after this. I do not doubt that, RC. Optimuss assured. Over time, I hope that we can earn the trust of Sector 7 through any way possible. Still, we should be thankful that they trust us enough now to lend their assistance with setting up our base and keeping our secret on Earth. I still don't know, Optimuss. Bulkhead piped up, crossing his arms skeptically. I mean, these Sector 7 people might say they were tricked into working for the cons, but who's to say they won't stab us in the back to try and figure out how our tech works for their own benefit. At that, Kyoka grinned up to the big green bot. Awesome. We're on the same wavelength here, Bulk. The Autobot's demolition expert gave her another thumbs up before Optimuss attempted to appeal to them. I am well aware of the potential risks, but I sense that Agent Fowler and the other agents have no malicious intent behind their motivations. In fact, when I spoke to Fowler this morning, he once again apologized for allowing Shatter and Dropkick to get away with what they did. The red and blue bot shook his head. I know that the both of you have reservations about Sector 7, but if you will allow them a chance, I believe they will be great allies. Kyoka and Bulkhead eyed one another before both of them shrugged. Well, okay, Prime, but if they mess up, that's on them, the Perplet stated. Very well. Honk honk. Just then, the sound of an approaching car horn came from outside, followed up by a rather slick voice coming in through everyone's comlink. Autobot Outpost Omega-1, this is Jazz, ya copy. The Autobot lieutenant rang in. I just came back from recon and would really appreciate ya opening the door. Haha, of course, Jazz. Optimuss confirmed. We'll lower the shields now. Prime nodded toward Red Alert and he pulled out a remote, pressing a red button on it which lowered the energy field. Before long, everyone heard the loud revving of an engine before a Martini Porsche 935 77ths came rushing in, the car skidding along the floors of the main area before turning and driving into the control room. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. With a mighty leap over the humans' heads, causing Momo to let out a yelp in surprise, Jazz transformed into his robot form, his legs extending from the back of his car mode as the back wheels settled on his ankles. His lower torso came out from the interior of the car while the front of the Porsche formed his chest, the front wheels flipping in to allow the arms to come out. The roof and windshield of his car mode settled to his back and his head popped out from the hood, his visored face smiling from ear to ear as he landed in a classic, superhero landing. Woo. Haha, now that is what I call a 10-point landing. He stood up to his full height and nudged his head toward the humans. And, hey, I see our guests are already talking, the grand tour. What's happening, guys? Hey Jazz. Izuku waved. Nothing much, honestly. We just got started taking a look around. And it's all fantastic so far. May jumped in. I seriously can't wait to help you guys set up your computer system, it's gonna be incredible. Red Alert seemed to want to object to that, but Jazz piped up before he could. Huh. Well, can't fault you cats for one thing, you guys all seem pretty excited to pitch in. He gave the humans a big thumbs up. That's something I can give major props to. Momo put a hand over her heart, still trying to calm herself after how Jazz came in. Thank you, Jazz, but, did you have to come in like that? Jazz put a hand to the back of his help with an apologetic face. Hey, sorry if I scared ya or anything. But hey, come on, ya gotta admit, it was pretty cool, right? The lieutenant gave the group a two-fingered salute. After all, if ya can't do anything with style, it ain't worth doing. Hey, that's quite the motto to live by. Kyoka raised a brow up to him. So, where exactly were you, Jazz? Doing some scouting, Kyoka, simple as that. Jazz answered. Gotta be sure there ain't any cons or other threats around and all that. He turned to Optimuss with a somewhat frustrated expression. Though, unfortunately, I don't think there's any energon deposits in this general area, Prime. Sorry to report. That's quite alright, Jazz. Prime asserted. Soon, we should have everything ready and... Sideswipe. Oh no. At the sound of a female voice echoing through the entire structure, Optimus Prime suddenly felt his shoulders grow a lot heavier. He knew what that usually meant, and sure enough, from the other side of the room, a young red bot came careening through another entryway, clattering to the floor in a heap. This bot had the entire hood of a Lamborghini Countach for his chest, with the back half of the vehicle forming his legs. His helm was entirely black and somewhat angular with a pair of dulled horns on top of it, and if his expression was anything to go by, he was both in pain and very terrified. His head snapped up and his optics darted around the room in panic. Guys, you gotta help me. She's on a bigger warpath than even Warpath can go on. Sideswipe immediately crawled as fast as he could over to the humans, and tried to hide behind them. You've gotta hide me. Kyoka couldn't help but deadpan at the scene before her. An Autobot was coming to her and her friends for protection. Something was mixed up about that. Dude, seriously. She folded her arms and glared down at him. You're a freaking Autobot warrior. Whatever's going on, you can handle yourself, I'm sure. Sideswipe peeked out from behind his hand at the perplet. Why you don't understand, you can't reason with Strongarm when she's like this. Correction, you can't reason with Strongarm when she's like this, Sideswipe. Windblade said in a scolding tone as Bumblebee and RC sent similar disapproving expressions down to the red bot. Now, what did you do? Taking one glance around, it was clear that no one was on Sideswipe's side in this situation, so he sighed and sat back up. Alright, fine, I may have called dibs on the room that she wanted. Everyone stared at the young bot in a dumbfounded state, before May uttered, that's it. That's all that's going on. She rubbed her temple and gave a groan. That sounds like one of the inconsequential arguments that my little brothers would have with each other. What's so special about having one room over the other? Well, this room has this big, cool plant that's growing up out of the ground that actually goes through the roof. Sideswipe explained excitedly. I figured once I took the plant out, I could renovate the whole place to have a sweet jungle gym that. You will not remove that tree. Strongarm's voice bellowed through the hall. Ah, scrap. Sideswipe shrunk back as he saw an absolutely livid fembot slowly come skulking out of the hallway, glaring daggers at Sideswipe. The blue and white femme was built strong yet shapely, with a helm that had a yellow chevron on her forehead. It was clear that she transformed into a Jeep Gladiator police truck, her hood having flipped down over her grille to form her breastplate while her front wheels formed her shoulders. The truck bed seemed to form her legs and her doors stuck out of her back like a pair of wings, the truck's roof having settled on her back itself. The light bar of the vehicle was split in half and settled on her forearms, and currently, those lights were flashing rapidly with Strongarm's frustration. However, there was a reason why she was moving so slow, and it was because another bot was trying to hold her back. Another yellow and black bot who also appeared to transform into a Countach, though his transformation was very different. The front of the car became his legs while his chest was formed from the roof, the back half of his vehicles having formed his arms. The bot's rounded head had two fin-like structures on each side, and his chin was painted to look like he had a goatee. Sunstreaker grit his teeth and dug in his heels, but still, Strongarm pressed on. Sideswipe. I can't hold her back any longer. Don't give in now, son. Sideswipe pressed. You can find the strength too. It's not that. Sunstreaker denied, glancing down in horror to see one of his armor panels scraping against the floor. It's my paint job. Gah-ha. In desperation, Sunstreaker let Strongarm go and let her charge ahead, moving his hands down to make sure that none of his paint was chipped. Sideswipe was less than impressed. Bro, seriously, ow. Without hesitation, Strongarm lifted Sideswipe up off the floor and pinned him to the wall, nearly making him spring an oil leak. He heard Strongarm's engine rev with her anger, her air vents letting out hot air as she grit her metal teeth at him. Haha, hi, Strongarm. Sideswipe, if you even so much as lay a hand on that tree, I will pound you into the pavement until there's nothing left but a red smear. Strongarm's threat made everyone step back a bit, excluding Prime and Red Alert. Do you know how much organic life depend on that tree to live? I will not let you desecrate it, do you hear me? There was a bit of silence before All Might realized, wait, Sideswipe, you wanted to remove a tree. The hero's smile faltered and he shook his head toward Sideswipe. If that's so, then I'll have to agree with Strongarm on this one. Trees are not to be cut down without permission from the landowner, and since young Yaoyorozu's father still owns this land, it will not be removed. Exactly. Momo pitched in as well, giving her own 2 cents. Besides, not only do local wildlife depend on trees, but humans do too. They essentially make the oxygen we need to breathe, after all. Oh, what's breathe? Sideswipe asked, followed by a chorus of facepalms. Optimuss shook his head before moving over to the two, separating both of them by hand. The point being is this, that tree will not be taken down. And as such, Strongarm wanted the room first, so she has the right to have it. Strongarm immediately brightened up at that and pumped a victorious fist. Yes, thank you so much, Optimus Prime, sir. But, if there is any more arguing like this over the room, neither of you will have it. Optimus narrowed his optics down to the 2 young bots, letting them know just how serious he was about the subject. Do I make myself clear? Both Strongarm and Sideswipe immediately gave a salute. Crystal, sir. Both of them exclaimed. Good. Optimus turned back around and gestured down to the humans. Now, stay sharp. We have guests, after all. Strongarm's irises rose up in surprise before she smiled down to the group of 5 organics. Oh, you're the humans from last night. She knelt down to the ground and pointed to all of them as she named them off. Let's see, Izuku, Kyoka, Momo, Mei, and All Might, right? Indeed, that's us. Momo affirmed. It's good to see you again, Strongarm. Likewise. The cadet cheerily returned before moving her head around toward Sunstreaker. Hey, son, the humans are here. However, the yellow bot simply sent them all a wave as his other hand retracted into his arm, only for a wax buffer to come back out of his wrists. Why yeah, hi there, guys. Sorry for the lack of conversation, but my paint is screaming at me right now and I've gotta buff it out. The buffer began to spin around rapidly as Sunstreaker lowered it down near his heel, working hard to fix the small damage to his armor panel. Everyone, human and Autobot, couldn't help but deadpan at the sight of that. Does he really do that all the time? Kyoka asked. Unfortunately, yes. Sideswipe sighed before smirking toward his twin. But, he is my brother, like it or not. He and I may be complete opposites, but I still love the guy. I see. Izuku sheepishly said before changing the subject. So, how've you all been acclimating to Earth so far? Do you like it? Oh, hell yeah, dude. Jazz exclaimed as he crouched down, pointing to the teens with double-finger guns. You kiddin'? This planet's off the hook. I mean, I've already found about 30 radio stations that I can't get enough of. Check it. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Jazz suddenly transformed and switched on his radio, which produced a bunch of garbled sounds as he jumped from station to station before settling on one in particular. And before anyone knew it, the lively music of Earth, Wind and Fire suddenly greeted their ears. Let's groove tonight. Share the spice of life. Baby, slice it right. We're gonna groove tonight. Let this groove get you to move. It's alright, alright, alright. Let this groove set in your shoes. Stand up, alright, alright. Jazz couldn't help but move his chassis to the beat of the music. Oh, what did I tell ya, man? Talk about groovy. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. He transformed back into robot mode and began break dancing to the beat, leaving the teens in complete awe. Betcha never seen moves like this. Whoa ho. Kyoka laughed as Jazz did a kickflip and landed on his feet. Huh, man, well, guess that's one Autobot who I don't need to introduce music to. She craned her head around and raised a brow to Bumblebee. Maybe you should learn to dance, B. It'd go well with how you use your radio. Bumblebee smirked beneath his mouthguard and rolled his optics a bit. ZRKT, yeah, right. ZRKT, like I need. ZRKT, sick moves. ZRKT, to be awesome. Hee, yeah, I know. Kyoka gave him a reassuring pat on his foot. You're still and always will be awesome. B replied with a happy buzz and a big smile before RC spoke up. Hey, by the way, Kyoka, she lowered herself down to the humans with a questioning gaze. What exactly were you guys talking about back at UA with your friends? Her sights then settled onto Momo. I remember you saying something about a major announcement, Momo, so what exactly was it? Momo brightened up and struck the palm of her hand with a light fist. Oh, yes, the UA Sports Festival is going to be happening in a couple of weeks. Almost all at once, the Autobots asked, a sports festival? Ah, yes, the sports festival. All Might announced, sending his signature grin down to his students. I was actually going to ask you all about that. I'm certainly glad to see that you're all excited for the event, so, he gave the teens a thumbs up. Be sure to do your very best and remember to make a grand slam in the event. After all, it only comes around once a year, and you get 3 chances in your tenure to make a lasting impression, so best of luck to all of you. The 4 teens all nodded to All Might eagerly. We will, thank you All Might. May in particular couldn't help but squeal in delight. I can't wait to show the pros just what my babies are able to do. All of the top support groups will be watching, so I have to make a good impression. Yeah, and let's not forget that lots of pros are going to be watching as well. Momo reminded once again. Excuse me. Everyone perked their heads up to Bulkhead, who along with the rest of the Autobots, still seemed very confused. What exactly is this sports festival? Oh, that's right, how neglectful of me. All Might chuckled before elaborating for the Cybertronians. Allow me to explain, the UA Sports Festival is an event where all of our students strive to show their stuff to the pro heroes, as well as the rest of the country and beyond. This is where the true road to becoming a pro starts for the students, after all. The number 1 hero raised a single finger as he explained the layout of the festival itself. Students are separated by class year, and from there, the support, business, general studies and hero courses all battle against one another in a multitude of preliminary trials. All Might couldn't help but flex his muscles, getting pumped up at the very idea of the festival. And whoever makes it through the initial games will face off in the finals. Izuku decided to pipe in with his own point as well. It's basically like one big round-robin tournament. It's really cool and the winners are rewarded with medals. The group of humans could immediately several Autobots grow interested in the concept of the sports festival, with even Sunstreaker lifted his head in intrigue. Whoa, now that sounds like something I would watch. The yellow Lambo bot beamed. Frag yeah, so would I. Sideswipe pumped a fist. Sounds totally awesome. Kyoka gave the brothers a nod. Yeah, it is, which leads us to something we wanted to ask. She set her eyes back onto Optimuss and Windblade with a hopeful grin. We were kinda hoping that maybe you guys would be able to help us with our training. I mean, hell knows we can't slack off at a time like this. Why yeah, and I need to get a better handle on my quirk in general, Izuku added with a sheepish glance over to All Might. The symbol of peace gave him a reassuring nod and Izuku returned it before asking Optimuss once again, so please, would you consider helping us train, Optimuss? Windblade moved around and tilted her head to her leader. Well, Optimuss, what do you think? Prime put a finger to his chin and thought it over for a moment. Thankfully, it didn't take long for him to come up with his answer. Well, I don't see why not. In fact, I think it would make for a good bonding experience between our two groups. He gave the teens a nod of approval. Very well, starting effective tomorrow afternoon, your training with us will begin. The four young humans all gave a rousing cheer before Optimuss raised a hand to them. However, before that can start, we must pay a visit to Sector 7. Agent Fowler has requested our presence at their base for an important meeting. Izuku's eyes widened while Kyoka visibly soured at the idea. Whoa, really? What for? All Might put a finger to his lips. That's a surprise for you kids, young Midoriya. But worry not, everything will be made clear soon enough. He came over to his protege and set a hand to his shoulder. With that said, I wholeheartedly approve of you kids training with the Autobots. I'm sure they'll be able to help you all in any way they can. You betcha. RC gave a thumbs up. You can count on me to lend a hand, for sure. Bulkhead smacked a fist into his palm with great exuberance. Yeah, same here. Can't wait to get this training started. Ha ha ha. And that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. All Might laughed before lowering his head down to Izuku and Kyoka. With that said, though, young Midoriya, young Jiro, would you mind if I pulled the two of you and Bumblebee aside for a small while? There's something important I want to talk to you all about. This managed to pique both Momo and Mei's interests. What's all this about? However, Izuku and Kyoka could see a bit of blood start to trickle from All Might's mouth, and immediately, the two knew what it was about. You know, just some training-related stuff, nothing major. The Greenette assured. Yeah, things are good. Kyoka waved as she ushered Bumblebee to follow them to one of the back rooms. We'll catch up with you gals on the tour, okay? We'll only be talking for a few minutes. Yes, of course, Momo muttered as she watched the four make their way around the corner and into another room, which only raised her suspicions further. Something's up, I can feel it. Mei scratched her head curiously. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe I've been getting from Muscles and Jackie for a little bit now, but just as quickly, the pink-haired girl gave a shrug. But that's a question for another day. She suddenly grabbed Momo by the arm and began dragging her across the room and up to the ground bridge, much to the raven-haired beauty's dismay. Now come on, I've been wanting to study this thing since I got here. Across the room, everyone could hear Red Alert utter an exasperated groan. This is going to be an interesting experience, the Metabot thought to himself. As he went back to work, however, he noticed that Optimuss was staring in the direction that All Might, Bumblebee and the children had gone off in, piquing his interest. Optimuss, is everything alright? Oh, yes, Red Alert. Optimuss waved off. Everything is fine. He briefly glanced back toward the hall as he made his way toward the control panel. At least I believe so. Poof. All Might, or rather, Toshinori Yagi, took deep, wheezing breaths as his body returned to its thin, skeletal shape, with steam wafting from pretty much everywhere on him. He coughed a bit, hacking up a small amount of blood before turning back to Izuku, Kyoka and Bumblebee. Am I glad you kids read the signal. The moment I felt this coming on, I almost panicked. The symbol of peace gave a groan as he sat down in a nearby chair, which caused a bit of dust to be kicked up. I tell ya, it's been hard keeping the muscle form going lately. Izuku's eyes showed concern for his mentor as he stepped forward. What do you mean, All Might? Toshinori scratched his head and sighed. Well, to tell you the truth, I've overdone it one too many times, young Midoriya. He set his sunken-in eyes up to his pupil with a serious expression. Unfortunately, fighting that Nomu shaved a little bit off my time limit, about 30 minutes or so. Oh god. Kyoka tapped her jacks together in apprehension. That's really not good. In fact, it sucks big time. Bumblebee gave a sad buzz and slumped forward worriedly, all while Izuku moved his eyes to the floor. I'm so sorry. If we had just. Bah ha ha ha. Toshinori suddenly threw his head back and laughed until blood spewed out of his mouth, causing the two teens and Bumblebee to jump in surprise. Once he gained his composure, All Might sent his protege a reassuring grin. You don't have to apologize for anything. Man, we are alive, you and me. He sent the boy a wink and pointed up to Bumblebee. Besides, if it weren't for Bumblebee incapacitating the Nomu beforehand, things probably would have been a lot worse for me. Kyoka cracked a smile and nodded up to the big yellow bot. He's got a point. Sticking that sword in the thing's head and using his holoform to fight off those two other villains was pretty smart. ZRKT, ah, shucks. B rubbed his head sheepishly. ZRKT, don't mention it. But in any case, there is another reason why I pulled you aside. Toshinori faced Izuku again and raised a hand. That being the sports festival. Thing is, you still haven't gotten a hang of your quirk yet. The blonde man had to be careful about his wording here. Kyoka knew about his true form and the fact that he was personally training Izuku to be his successor, but she still wasn't savvy on One for All, at least not yet. That was on a need-to-know basis between him and Izuku, along with a couple others. She'd probably figure it out at some point, but not now. So tell me, young Midoriya, what's your plan? Izuku lowered his head in thought. Honestly, I'm not too sure. He clenched a fist in slight frustration. My bones still break like twigs whenever I use it, even against the Decepticons we fought. We're hoping that training with the Autobots could help him get a handle on using his quirk better. Kyoka jumped in, putting a supportive hand on Izuku's shoulder. I mean, if training with a race of giant alien robots won't help him, then what could, right? Toshinori placed a hand to his chin. That definitely is a possibility, and a good idea as well. And you know what else would be a good idea? Kyoka jerked a thumb over her shoulder and back toward the door. Maybe telling everyone else out there about, she gestured to the symbol of peace with waving hands. All of this concerning you. Her statement took Toshinori off guard, but it shocked him even more when Izuku agreed with her. I wouldn't be against that idea either, All Might. It would definitely make things a lot easier than just having us be the only ones to see your true form. The Greenette shrugged his shoulders. Besides, I'm pretty sure Windblade saw you in this form already back at the USJ, so why not? The number one hero sighed and scratched the back of his neck. Well, you do make some good arguments, but let's wait on that a little longer, okay? Just, to give me some time to think about it. Kyoka, Izuku and Bumblebee all shared a look before going back to the skinny man before them. Alright, All Might, if that's really what you want. Izuku accepted. Just don't think on it for too long, okay? Kyoka crossed her arms with a narrow-eyed look. It's not exactly something you can avoid, got it? Right, I understand. Toshinori accepted before standing up to move over to the nearest window, his sights settling across the vast ocean. Besides, I may have to tell them sooner rather than later. To be frank, I don't have much time as the world's symbol of peace. Soon, I'll have to put that title to bed. Once more, the teens and Bumblebee all wore worried expressions at All Might's words, and Izuku's hand went up to grasp his shoulder in some form of comfort. Number way. What's more, there are plenty of villains out there that are starting to notice that. Toshinori continued. And combine that with the chance of the Decepticons returning, someone has to step up to keep the people safe. He did an about-face and set all his focus onto Izuku, balling his hand into a fist. I chose you as my successor for one reason, young Midoriya, because you will be the hero that takes my place. Izuku and Kyoka could both feel a tingly feeling go through them as All Might made his speech. Your conviction under my tutelage only proved that to me. So tell me, do you still feel the same way when we first met? Do you still want to be a hero? Izuku gulped down whatever apprehension he was feeling, and with determination gave a resounding, yes. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Kyoka giving him a proud smile, which only made the butterflies in his stomach fly off the handle. Toshinori nodded to him and went on. Excellent. Because the time has come for you to prove it. The sports festival is something that the pros, no, the entire country will be watching very closely. He saw Izuku's eyes widen, realizing the gravity of what was to come. I want you to think of it as your debut. You are the fledgling symbol of peace, the next All Might. Their eyes locked as the teacher finished giving his words of motivation. Izuku Midoriya, I want you to introduce yourself to the world and proudly say, I am here. No one said a word as Izuku stood with his mouth slacked open slightly, finally taking in the whole weight of the situation. Seeing this, Kyoka leaned in and cracked, but no pressure. Thump. She barely finished before Izuku fell to the floor in a catatonic state. Bumblebee lightly poked Izuku's cheek, which went unchanged as Kyoka facepalmed. Okay, maybe a lot of pressure. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 1 of this new What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.